Hello, Professor. Today I'm going to be talking about overcoming network effects. Let's start over. Hello, Professor. Today I'm going to be talking about overcoming network effects. To start off, we need to understand what are network effects. And in this case, it is dealing specifically where the more people use the product, the greater the value of it is. And there are two main types of network effects, which is direct and indirect. When it comes to direct, the value increases directly with the number of users, which is very similar to the definition. And the perfect example of that would be some YouTubers, bloggers, or any type of social media or content creators who get more popular by having more people viewing them, and therefore it has a direct effect on their actual value of the product that they're providing because they have more finances to add the value into their products and their service that they're trying to portray to the world. And when it comes to the indirect network effects, their value increases for two unrelated groups of customers at the same time. And this is mainly dealing with software or, for example, even Apple, for example, Sampia or Windows. Quite a few people use PCs for gaming. At the same time, they use it for work. At the same time, they could use it for photography. And therefore, by improving the general hardware of an actual PC, it improves their experience for multiple groups at a time. For people who are gaming, they have better resolution, they have better quality of the games. For people with photography, they also have better resolution and they can edit their pictures better. And the importance over here is that it can be seen as the source of innovation, and it also increases the barriers of entry, which is a minor drawback, which at the same time increases the level of monopolies that can exist within those specific network effect industries. And therefore, now let's take a look at the drawbacks of network effects. In this case, there is market dominance. As I mentioned, it can create market monopolies. More specifically, if one let's go back to the blogger slash content creator industry. If one content creator becomes so big, like we know right now, Mr. Beast, he would be at the top of the league and he would be basically controlling the market. And whatever Mr. Beast does, other bloggers and other content creators, they would want to copy him and try to do the same thing as he does. But it is very difficult because his brand became so highly monopolistic that no matter how closely they do it to Mr. Beast, it's never going to be of the same value. There's also high barriers of entry, as I just mentioned, which also is causing high switching costs and more specifically opportunity cost. For example, when switching from Android to Apple, it becomes very difficult to switch to the software, the platform that they're using, the actual phone, the interface, and therefore the opportunity cost within those network effects industries is very high. And then there's a high dependency. As I mentioned, people who are using Android versus people who are using Apple products, they're highly dependable on their interface, and it's very difficult for them to switch to something else or another alternative. Now, let's talk about how we could overcome those network effects. In this case, companies can focus on niche market and more specifically identifying the perfect target market for their product in order to provide the best value possible for those customers that you're actually trying to target. There's also innovation taking part in this. For example, creating unique products and services to maintain a competitive edge. And then you also have to follow market trends. For example, being up to date with existing and upcoming networks of what is about to be the best network within the industry that the company is operating. This always has to be monitored and forecasted in order to understand what would be the potential threats and opportunities for your business to grow or to stay stable. And then also offer freemium models. In this case, that's specifically referring to a free network that can be enhanced by providing a premium subscription. And this is a simple example where there's a lot of games that would be free initially. And then if you want to advance and get a better equipment within the game, you would have to pay extra money for it. Or if you wanted to remove the ads from a specific website, very similar to that. And then now looking at the successful examples of overcoming network effects. In this case, we can see at Slack versus email. As someone who is personally using Slack all the time, I would highly prefer Slack over writing email because email is always seen as a more formal, while Slack is more casual business conversation within the organization. And therefore, they were able to implement that and identify this niche market that the people were requesting for. And as a result, they became a big company within the industry. Now looking at Spotify versus iTunes, this is a streaming versus downloading model. For example, Spotify is a streaming platform, while Apple is a downloading platform where you purchase a specific song and then you can download it. While on Spotify, you can stream it for free anytime, unless you don't have internet connection, which is one of the drawbacks of that specific model. Then now taking a look at Zoom versus established video conferencing tools. In this case, Zoom was able to offer a more user-friendly solution to traditional video conferencing tools, and as a result, it attracted a lot of customers. And through the use of network effects, the more users, the more people use that specific platform, the more value it is providing for them. And as a result, it built a massive network of people who switch from Skype and other streaming platforms to specifically Zoom for any of their online video meetings. And then looking at the conclusion and forecasting, in this case, network effects can have a significant impact on established organization, which forces companies to never stop growing and innovating, building a greater and more valuable market for the consumers. And in this case, I'll do that slide again. I have to fucking do that slide again. Now taking a look at the conclusion and the potential forecasting for oh my fucking God. Now taking a look at the conclusion and the forecasting for the network effects, we can see that network effects can have a significant impact on established organizations, which forces companies to never stop growing and innovating, which is building a greater and more valuable market for the consumers. The more value the organizations are adding to their products and services, meaning that the more value the users are offered within that specific product or service, not necessarily with a higher price. And therefore, it builds a much more comfortable market for both organizations to be more competitive and consumers to be more satisfied with the products that they're receiving. And then it is also highly important to notice the future trends where emerging technologies such as AI and cryptocurrency are growing rapidly, and therefore it requires different organizations to adapt to those specific market trends, and as a result, they have to react to it accordingly. And then for recommendations, it is important to gather as much consumer feedback as possible and react to market trends and do not stop to innovate. This is the key within network effect overcoming, is to not stop innovating, because that's what brings you your uniqueness to the product and the true value for it. Thank you. And here are my references. And goodbye. Hello, Professor. Today I'm going to be talking about understanding cross-subsidy, cross-subsidization, and transfer pricing. Firstly, we need to understand what is specifically cross-subsidy and transfer pricing, and what is the whole idea of financial strategies that have to be used. So in this case, how are financial strategies impacting organizations? And they're impacting them greatly. For the use of different financial strategies, companies are able to maximize their profit margins by reducing the cost, or for example, adding more value to their products without additional investment, which allows them to improve their profit margins. For instance, one time we learned that in the situation between two banks, they were able to create an agreement that allowed them to have 24,000 ATMs instead of 12,000 each. And as a result, they were able to operate in two different countries at the same time without necessarily having additional investments or cutting down their costs. And then we also will understand how to utilize cross-subsidy, cross-subsidization, and transfer pricing, and the main purpose of how can these financial strategies and principles be used in real life, and what are their benefits and challenges. So in this case, looking at the cross-subsidy, it is offering a product or service at a lower price than the actual cost by subsidizing with a premium product, which is highly above the cost per product or service. And the perfect example for that would be airline industry, where there is a regular seating and then there is premium seating such as business class or first class. As a result, even though airlines may not be paying back their cost through the common seating, they are able to increase their prices significantly without necessarily increasing their cost dramatically by offering business class seats, which allows them to basically subsidize for the customers, for the other customers in the common seating areas. And then the purpose of this is to become more competitive within the industry, attracting more customers and diversifying their portfolio by offering more products and services. As I mentioned, instead of just one seating plan, there could be at the same time 3 or 4 seating plans within an airplane, and each one of them serves as a financial strategy in order to subsidize for one another and provide the airline companies with the highest profit margins possible. Taking a look at the cross-subsidization principle, in this case, it's very similar, as it is customers subsidizing for other customers for products or services of the same brand. And then the applications for that is that it's used to balance out profitability and enhance customer satisfaction. But it is very important to be careful when implementing that, because in some cases, customer satisfaction can be reduced because going back to the airline industry, for example, if the common seating is significantly cheaper quality and significantly cheaper value compared to the business class, people would not prefer to go to those common seating areas and would prefer a different airline that is offering better common seats compared to business class. And as a result, they would lose their customers, even though they were thinking that they're making the biggest profit margins in terms of their financial data. But in terms of their customers and in terms of their value that they're adding, it is actually reducing it. And also it can be applied to nonprofit organizations, which is a great example. For example, in this case, government is the one subsidizing for the customers who are in need. And as a result, they're lowering the cost for nonprofit organizations in order to allow for the people in need to experience the value of those organizations and receive a greater value of that. And then, as I mentioned, there are some challenges, and if it's not implemented correctly, it can lower customer satisfaction, can build conflicts, or reduce value for the product and service. And then when it comes to transfer pricing, in this case, transfer pricing is the prices with which stakeholders of a particular product or service are trading with. And it is a fairly tricky definition and concept. And therefore, in order to perfectly understand it, you would have to understand each one of those methods that is used within transfer pricing. And its main objectives is to have fair profit allocations and regulatory restrictions so that no one is trying to avoid paying taxes. And in this case, there is a comparable and controlled price, better known as CUP, where we're comparing controlled versus uncontrolled prices, and uncontrolled prices are primarily referring to the ones that are made between a controlled organization selling a product or service to an uncontrolled independent third party. And this way they're able to determine that specific transferring price. And when it comes to resale price method, it is pretty self-explanatory, which is the price of a product that was sold and then resold at the same time. Similar to basically real estate, which is being bought by people centuries after century, decades after decades, and is being resold after that. And that's how that specific transfer price is going to be calculated. When it comes to cost plus method, it is adding a markup to the originally purchased product. And this is where we can see how inflation plays a huge role in terms of cost plus methods in order to not only adjust for inflation. Some companies would be increasing or adding a markup to their existing prices in order to create a sense of premium quality and an illusion, and in some cases not an illusion, of a more valuable product or service. When it comes to integration of such principles, we have to understand that cross-subsidy and transfer pricing go hand in hand at all times, because cross-subsidy is basically using those specific pricing that they're offering for the subsidized customers, and therefore transfer pricing is what determines the pricing that would be subsidized for the subsidized customers versus for the premium customers. And the aim of this is to maximize financial performance and reduce any risks. And in the conclusion, it is also essential to utilize these strategies carefully, as the drawbacks can easily outweigh benefits depending on the industry. As I mentioned before, it can create a lot of conflicts if you're just trying to make as much money as possible while ignoring customers. Therefore, the most important concept that you have to understand using cross-subsidization principle is that you cannot forget about your users and you cannot forget about your customers. You always have to think about them to make sure that they're getting the values that they're receiving and that they're staying satisfied without reducing your competitive edge over your market competitors. And then for future implications, there's global tax regulations and greater competitive edge and more loyal customers if implemented correctly, as mentioned right now. Here are my references. Thank you and goodbye.